Alright, well, welcome back. This video is primarily to address what I would call a flood of comments I've been receiving lately on a video that's I would say over a year old at this point. The video, I think, was titled Kubota Diesel Light Tower Upgrade, something along those lines. This is the generator in question. This is was a light tower unit I picked up fairly cheap off of Craigslist. It was missing the light stand and a bunch of other things. I mainly bought it because it's a decent generator. And in that video, I had started along the lines of taking the enclosure apart, doing some modifications to the original control box to give it some meters for voltage, frequency, and current, as well as engine oil pressure and coolant temperature. I don't think I never really made a follow-up to that video. With getting married and moving, just kind of fell by the wayside. Although the project, I don't want to say that the project is complete, but it's done to the point where I can use the unit and it starts reliably. So the unit is due for its monthly load test, so I figured this would be a good time to make this follow-up video. So I'm going to take you off the tripod and I'll take a little walk around the unit. Okay, so here's a good close-up look at this unit. What it consists of is a 25-gallon aluminum fuel tank, 6 kilowatt New Age Stanford transformer regulated generator end, and a Kubota D905 engine. So here's the control panel after its improvements or modifications. Hour meter, charging amp meter, coolant temperature gauge, oil pressure gauge. These are electric gauges, not mechanical. And then these three little meters here. We got a frequency meter up front here. This is line 1, voltage and amperage, and line 2, voltage and amperage. Glow plug button and key switch. Now, about that glow plug button, in the previous video I mentioned that I was going to remove the glow plug, or I should say automatic glow plug timer, which this unit came equipped with, because I was having some difficulty cold starting and I wanted to burn the glow plugs while cranking to assist in starting. And boy did I ever get some flack for that idea. So, but I went along with it anyway. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. It's a pretty standard unit overall. I ended up, in total, not doing a whole lot of work to the engine. Adjusting the valve clearance. I flushed the radiator out, actually removed the radiator, flushed it, cleaned it, removed the alternator, disassembled it, cleaned it. They give the engine a general cleanup and a full oil change and fuel filters and all that good stuff. Here's a little shot of the Stanford tag. Give you some specs on the unit. So it's 6 kilowatt, 122 40 volt, 1800 RPM. Pretty standard stuff. The enclosure is not in the greatest condition, but it's not too bad by any means. So, going back to the glow plugs, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about having the glow plugs on an automatic timer, and or interlocking them so that you cannot crank the engine with the glow plugs hot. I appreciate all the advice that I received, both good and bad, but I went along with the separate push button for the glow plugs. I have an indicator light here that is on the load side of this button so that I know when the glow plug bus is energized and de-energized. This indicator light here is kind of I guess you could call it an idiot light. It is connected via a relay to the low oil pressure switch and the high engine temperature switch. So the engine will shut down in a low oil pressure or high engine temperature situation automatically and light this light here. So the light also illuminates when the ignition is on, but the engine has no oil pressure. The Gauges are backlit, which is handy at night. I'm pretty pleased with these meters. You'll see when we run it under load, they are clear and bright and are quite accurate. One or two other things I would still like to do with this thing is mount a light on the inside of the enclosure, like a 12-volt DC light off the battery, just as like a work light or a convenience light, as well as put a 120-volt receptacle or even a 240-volt receptacle on the unit somewhere. Currently, I just have about a 15-foot pigtail with some number 10 SO or SJO cord, and that drops through the basement window into my manual transfer switch. So let me put you back on the tripod. We'll get this thing started up and warm it up. Okay, well, the block temperature is about 35 degrees. I had an infrared thermometer earlier, so it's not brutally cold. It's been sitting in the barn all day, and it did get pretty cold last night, so you know, it's not below zero or anything like that. So it should start up quite easily. I'm going to give the glow plugs a 15-second burn, and we'll crank it over and see how it starts. I haven't run it in about a month, I guess. So it should start relatively easily, I would think. I let off the key before it got oil pressure. Showing on that 1 meter, and I've kind of noticed that. I think it's because I may have the wiring for the CTs for those little meters too close to the load wiring or the power wiring, getting a little bit of crosstalk or interference between the two. But they are accurate under load. So we're going to let this warm up for a few minutes, and then we're going to load it up with the load bank and give it a good half-an-hour run. We'll bring it up to 100% and make sure it's ready to go in the event of a power outage. While we're waiting for it to warm up, let's take a look inside the barn at the unit that I would like to permanently install for the house. I've already popped the enclosure panels off. This is a 20 kilowatt Onan genset. It's 20 kilowatt single phase. Has a 2.3 liter Ford industrial engine. Take a look at the nameplate here. I think it's an ES. Oh no, it's not. It's a GGBB. Okay, so it's a little bit later than the little ES units. I think this is a 2000, year 2000, I should say. So this is a running unit. The radiator does have a crack in the top tank, so I do have to repair that at some point. It has a pretty well optioned out detector control panel. Detector is just Onan's trade name for this style controller. Yeah, it's pretty well optioned out. It's got all the pre-alarm functions, the 2 spare alarm options. So it's got, what, 3,700 hours, 3,750 hours on the clock right now. The previous installation for this unit was at a security company, security monitoring company. You're probably not going to be able to see anything in here. And one thing they were fond of doing when inclement weather was forecast for the weekend, they would start the gen set up and just leave it running, so that in the event of a utility failure, the ATS would swing right to generator with very little delay. The gen was already running, warmed up, and ready to accept the load. So that's one of the main reasons why it's logged so many hours. Yeah, that's about it. I'd like to install this unit with a nice automatic transfer switch. Just got to get around to doing that. So let me cut, and we'll go back and load up the Kubota diesel. Alright, let me start applying a bit of load here. Well, we've got 4,000 watts on it, according to the load bank metering. Let's see where we're at here. I like those little meters. You know, they're Chinese import things, you know. So I don't know how long they'll last, but the power circuits, the voltage monitoring circuits are fused. I believe I've got a 1 amp fuse there, so if they do decide to die, it shouldn't cause too much of a problem. let's let it run for half an hour and see how it's doing. You can definitely hear that exhaust note now. Got shot with a piece of carbon there. Alright, well, we've had a good half an hour at 100% load, about 26 amps per leg. We're holding about 50 pounds of oil pressure hot. Temp gauge only got up to 140. That's actually a bit cold. I should have changed that thermostat out when I had the thing apart, but that's very easy to do. So, I guess that's a project for another day, really. I put you on the tripod and I'll cycle the load a few times. You can hear the exhaust note. Move it a little bit closer. Give that a chance to cool down. Loads off of it. Well, there you go. There's the light tower generator. Really happy with this purchase. I paid $500 for it. Had to put a little bit of work into it to get it running. But it really hasn't cost anything to repair and get usable, so I'm more than happy with it. Well, thanks for watching this little video.